and I'd like to invite you to come and visit the museum, see the collection, and enjoy what is the largest collection of Russian icons in the United States. If you visit at the museum in Clinton, you'll see over 300 icons from the 1400s to the present. That's 5 centuries of Russian culture right here in Clinton. Here you are right in front of a magnificent icon from the 1650s. And this depicts the Solovetsky Monastery in northern Russia. Stalin made it a gulag, a prison, and it was largely destroyed and it's being rebuilt. But this particular picture, dated around 1650, 1680, depicts a very specific scene where Peter the Great decides to integrate the Russian Orthodox Church and centralize it on Moscow. And a number of old believer monasteries refused to conform. And so agents of Peter the Great were sent out to bring the great abbot of this Solovetsky monastery outside the monastery and club him to death. And interestingly enough too, in this picture, you can see some of the many churches in the monastery itself. The Church of the Dormition, a monk ringing bells, the Church of St. Nicholas, and the Church of the Transfiguration. You can also see that the monks were very wealthy. They fished, they herded cattle, and they made salt, which they brought into a little workshop which was run by a water mill. So this icon is really an encapsulation of monastic life in Russia in the 17th century and has a short and little tie to Peter the Great, that great monarch. This is a whole wall of Mother of God images, and you'll notice that a lot of them are similar or almost exactly the same, and that's typical of Russian icons. The Russian icon writer, as they're called, they're not called painters, doesn't want to be original, but he wants to replicate the original image that is the origin of a particular Mother of God, and they're reproduced time and time again in the same way.
St. Nicholas was a bishop in the 4th century, and he lived up on the southern coast of the Mediterranean, which is now Turkey, lived in a city called Myra. And this picture right here is his birth, and this is his baptism. And these are mostly miracles that occurred during his life. He was born of rich parents, and they died early, so he inherited money. So his idea was to give the money to the poor. And that's what he wanted to do, and we all know him as Santa Claus, and some of those traits still exist in his history.
This is another great treasure of the museums, and a recent acquisition. We just got this about a year ago, and it depicts the Last Judgment. It's a 17th century work, in other words, 1600s, and it depicts that moment where the end of the world as we know it occurs, and the world that we live in today is replaced by a sacred world, governed by Jesus himself here, flanked by his mother and his cousin, John the Baptist, and souls are being weighed, whether they're good or bad. And on this side are the evil people, and on this side, the saved people. And this is a famous image in Russian Orthodox painting called a sin worm. And the sin worm has bellies, and each belly is an individual sin, the worst of which is the sin of pride.